we're looking at a negative test case for an API. I'm going through some test cases for an API, showing you as a QA or as a software tester what kind of things you are doing when you're testing APIs. In this example, we are testing this customer's API, which is an API to create a customer or to create a user. It calls it customer here because it's an WooCommerce or an e-commerce API, but normally you have a user API to create a user. Any company or any website would have that kind of API to create a user. So we looked at positive test cases where you actually send the request that it's expected to work, and you look at that. We'll look at more of those, but in this one, I'm looking at a negative test case. In this case, I'm trying to make an API call. I'm sending the call without the password, and password is required. So the first thing I look out for when I'm doing a negative test case is their status code, the response status code. So in this case, we got 400, which is good. That's what we expect because the API is expected to handle this correctly. The API is supposed to fail if we don't pass in a required field. In this case, we're missing a password. So the first thing is the status code. Then I look at the actual response body. Now, some APIs might not even give you anything. They just give you a status code. That's really bad design. Some APIs will just give you an empty list, an empty JSON. Some APIs might have just one single message. The one single message one I actually like, as long as it tells me exactly what's wrong. This one is pretty nice. It has a JSON, it has the code. So it's like basically one word because divided in underscore. It tells you exactly what's wrong, right? Missing callback param. And then there's a message. The message is very explicit. It says missing parameters, and we list out what are the missing ones. Is password. In this case, only password is missing. Then there is this data, not as helpful because we already got the status code here, but it has a password there too. So your job as a tester is, hey, did a response exactly this way? Your job is not to decide how the response should look like. That is decided by the engineers, by the developers that created this, and by the product people. Usually this kind of stuff by the engineers. So they already designed it to return the API in this way. So your job is, hey, did it return in this exact way? So if you're doing manual testing, you look at it and it's good. If you're doing automation testing, then in your automation code, you're looking for explicitly this. You're going to do you're going to parse this data. You're going to make a request. You're going to get a response. You're going to check the status code, parse this data, make sure it is correct. Another test case would be, what if we don't even have an email, right? Let's say I send a call. Again, I expect a 400, but the message should be different. Or the message is now, yeah, it is different because it's missing two things and it's telling you exactly what's missing, email and password. Those two things are required and you check everything else. So that's a negative test case. Another thing you can do is you can add some gibberish data. You can try to put like email and password, but a field that doesn't actually exist. So that's a negative test case. I have tons of APIs to show you. So make sure you give me a follow and we're going to do a lot more testing of APIs.